The evening began in a modest fellowship hall in Shreveport, Louisiana, typically used for Sunday services and Bible study. However, on this special night, the room was filled with an atmosphere of anticipation, as a rare guest, Donald Trump, had come to speak. He stood before an audience of locals, families, and retirees, eager to hear his views on current issues, policies, and the future. Among the crowd was an unassuming but extraordinary figure, a young girl named Lily, only 8 years old. She stood out not due to her appearance but because of the weight of what she was about to do. Lily had prepared for this moment for weeks, and now, holding a cherished family Bible passed down from her late grandmother, she was ready to ask the most important question of her young life. Her mother had whispered to her before the event, "You can ask him, but only if you're brave enough and if you truly mean it." Lily, with her heart pounding in her chest, had been rehearsing her question for days, knowing that this wasn't a simple curiosity, it was something far more profound. As Trump spoke about his usual subjects, policy, achievements, and national issues, Lily anxiously awaited her moment. The opportunity finally came when he opened the floor to questions. At first, she hesitated, shrinking in her seat, but with a gentle nudge from her mother, she rose. Slowly, the room became aware of her small figure moving towards the stage, clutching her Bible. Trump noticed her immediately, his eyes softening as he acknowledged her presence. "What's your question, young lady?" he asked kindly. Lily's hands trembled as she gripped the Bible tightly. Her voice, though nervous, was steady as she asked, "Mr. Trump, what does God mean to you?" The room fell silent, all eyes now focused on the two of them. Even the most seasoned political observers were caught off guard by the simplicity and depth of the question. For someone known for his sharp retorts and quick responses, Trump's silence was unexpected. He gazed at Lily, then at the Bible she held, and something in his demeanor seemed to shift. After a long pause, Trump spoke quietly. "That's a big question, and it's not one I've always had the answer to." His words surprised many, as Trump, often portrayed as confident and decisive, was acknowledging uncertainty. He shared with the room how, when he was a child, he had often questioned his own faith. His parents took him to church every Sunday, but he struggled to understand the concept of God. He remembered staring at stained glass windows, wondering if God was truly listening. "Faith is a ladder," Trump continued, reflecting on his father's words. "My dad told me that it's like a ladder. You climb it step by step, even when you're afraid to fall, because there's something worth reaching for." At the time, I didn't get it, he confessed. I thought it was just something he said to keep me quiet. Lily, however, remained focused on him, her gaze unwavering. Trump's tone softened as he continued. He spoke of the challenges life had thrown his way, losses, failures, and moments of feeling abandoned. Despite these trials, he realized that faith wasn't about having all the answers. It was about trusting that there was a higher purpose, something greater than what could be seen in the moment. "God, to me, is that purpose," Trump said, his voice filled with sincerity. "He's the one who tells us to climb the ladder, even when it feels like it's going to break." Lily, her eyes wide, began to tear up, not from sadness, but from the sheer emotional weight of Trump's words. Her grandmother's Bible, now held tightly in her arms, seemed to symbolize everything that had come before her in her family's faith journey. It was clear that, for Lily, this moment would be something she would carry with her for the rest of her life. Her mother instinctively reached out to comfort her, whispering softly, "It's okay, sweetheart." But Lily, wiping her eyes, shook her head. She knew this was bigger than any of them. Trump, noticing the shift in her demeanor, smiled gently. "You know, Lily," he said, "sometimes the simplest questions are the hardest to answer, and sometimes those questions remind us of what really matters." Lily, now calmer, nodded. "My grandma used to say that too," she whispered. "She said God is always listening, even when you don't hear him." Trump's expression softened as he realized how deeply Lily's question had touched him. He turned toward the crowd, recognizing the profound nature of her inquiry. "It's not an easy question," he said, "because it forces us to confront our own fears, doubts, and flaws, but it's a question we must ask ourselves. The crowd, captivated by the raw sincerity of the moment, sat in stunned silence as Trump continued. He spoke about how, throughout history, people have sought answers to life's deepest questions through power, money, and success, yet none of these things can truly fill the void. The real answers, he emphasized, lie in those uncomfortable questions, the ones that force us to examine our beliefs and define who we are as individuals. As the evening came to a close, the weight of the moment lingered in the air. Lily, once a small girl with a Bible, had become a symbol of hope and innocence, her question shifting the entire tone of the event. Trump, too, seemed changed by the experience. He had been reminded, in the most unexpected of ways, of the power of faith and the importance of asking the tough questions. "Thank you for reminding me of that, Lily," Trump said, smiling warmly. "You're wiser than most adults I know." The crowd, moved by the exchange, applauded softly, but the moment lingered long after the applause died down. For Lily, the evening had been a journey of faith, connection, and growth, and for Donald Trump, it was a reminder that sometimes the most profound lessons come from the simplest of questions. The evening continued with an almost sacred stillness in the air as the crowd absorbed the words Donald Trump had shared with Lily. The simple yet profound conversation between a young girl and a former president had not only shifted the tone of the evening, but had ignited something in the hearts of those present. A deep reflection on faith, life's challenges, and the role that belief plays in navigating them. After the applause died down, the room seemed to hold its collective breath. The mood had shifted from one of casual political discourse to one of quiet reverence. People looked at each other with a shared sense of realization, as if a moment of truth had unfolded in front of them, one that they would carry with them long after the night was over. Lily stood there, still clutching her grandmother's Bible, her cheeks flushed from the emotional exchange. She wasn't just a little girl anymore. She had become a beacon of something much larger than herself. Trump, too, seemed affected by the moment. His usual confident and brash persona had given way to a more reflective side of him. The question Lily had asked had not only been one of simple curiosity, but a question that, at its core, challenged the very essence of what it means to be human. What does God mean to you? It was a question that forced Trump to look inward, to examine his beliefs in a way he hadn't done in a long time. For a man who had spent much of his life in the public eye, dealing with politics, business, and the demands of power, this was a rare moment of vulnerability. As the evening wore on, Trump continued to reflect on the power of faith and its role in his life. He spoke of how, in times of great success, it was easy to forget the importance of spiritual grounding. Yet, when faced with personal loss and struggle, it was faith that had been there to guide him through the darkest times. He shared a story from his own life, a time when he had lost a loved one, a moment that had shaken him to his core. It was in that moment of loss that he had turned to prayer, not because he had all the answers, but because he needed something greater than himself to hold on to. Trump looked at the crowd as he spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "There's a part of us, a human part, that craves certainty," he said. "We want to know everything, to have all the answers, but life isn't like that. Life is messy, it's uncertain, and sometimes we have to learn to live with that uncertainty. Faith teaches us to do that. It teaches us that there is a plan, even if we can't see it." Lily's eyes never left him. She had been listening intently, her small frame still standing proudly in front of the crowd. To her, these words were more than just an adult's reflections. They were the foundation of everything she had been taught. Her grandmother had always spoken about faith in a similar way, that it wasn't about always having the answers, but about trusting in the journey, even when it seemed unclear. As the night unfolded, the room became more than just a space for conversation. It became a space for healing. People began to open up about their own experiences with faith and loss, sharing personal stories that resonated deeply with everyone present. Some spoke of their struggles, of moments when they had felt lost or abandoned, and how faith had been the light that guided them back. Others shared stories of redemption, of how they had found their way back to God after a long period of doubt or separation. Lily, despite her young age, had unknowingly started a conversation that many had been afraid to have. She had asked the question that others had been too afraid to voice, and in doing so, she had opened up a floodgate of emotions and reflections that brought the entire room together. It wasn't just about a question, it was about the courage to ask it and the willingness to listen to the answer. For Trump, the night had been a revelation. As a public figure, he had been accustomed to speaking in front of large crowds, delivering speeches filled with political rhetoric and policy proposals. But tonight, the conversation had been different. It had been personal, it had been raw, and it had reminded him of something important, something he had often neglected in the chaos of his busy life. "Lily," Trump said as the evening drew to a close, "thank you for your question. You've reminded me of the power of faith, of the importance of asking the hard questions, and of the strength that comes from believing in something greater than ourselves." Lily, now standing a little taller, smiled softly, her tears now dried. She had asked the question, and in return, she had received an answer that would stay with her for the rest of her life. She wasn't just a little girl anymore. She had become a catalyst for something much larger, a moment of connection between people from all walks of life. As the crowd began to disperse, people lingered, exchanging quiet words with one another. The conversation had shifted from politics and policy to something far deeper. The power of faith to bring people together, to heal, and to remind us of what truly matters. And for Lily, the evening had marked the beginning of a new chapter in her own journey of faith, a journey that would continue to unfold in ways she could never have imagined. Her mother, who had been watching the exchange with pride and awe, wrapped her arms around Lily as they left the hall. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "You've done something very special tonight." Lily looked up at her mother with a quiet smile. "I just asked the question that needed to be asked," she said softly. And with that, the two of them walked out into the night, the weight of the moment still lingering in the air, a moment that would be remembered for years to come, not because of politics, but because of the simple, powerful question of what God truly means to us.